Ladies and gentlemen, Chronego bringing you some more Cosmonarchy here. We have before us another matchup between some aspiring players, some young stars in the making, some Cosmonarchs who have played the game for a good while, but, you know, we're still waiting to see them achieve true greatness. Grass Eater in the bottom right has been around for quite a while. He's our Mint Zerg. And in the top left, we have NICOLAS, our green Terran, who kind of has like a on-again, off-again relationship with Cosmonarchy, it feels like. He does like to play it, and only lately has he actually showed up to a tournament, Weekend Wage. NICOLAS has already done some interesting things. Somehow he came up with a really epic, like, Fulcrum, 1 Goliath, 7 Vulture build or whatever it was, and he just pushed in Sausage, and Sausage had no answer on Patadia. That's a map with a pretty high rush distance as well, so you would think that it would be insulated against stuff like that. Well, it's not going to be Mech versus Zerg. NICOLAS will be going Stockade now. We'll get to see how he does in this matchup. And then it is worth noting that he's in the lower bracket because of a match he played against Newt, Terran versus Terran. Obviously, Newt is the more favored player there, so we would have expected that outcome, but I kind of expected Sausage to beat NICOLAS, so the fact that he did what he did in that matchup against Newt was pretty interesting. I highly recommend you check out that video on the YouTube channel. Of course, I walk into these replays and I don't always know if it's going on YouTube or if it's going on TikTok. All that depends on the video length. So I guess we'll see if Grass Eater can hold out long enough for this to be a YouTube-worthy video as a result of its video length, or if I'm passing it off to my TikTok manager. We have 3 Stockades, and we have, of course, a Larvosk here for Grass Eater. So this is going to be a fairly committed, one-base push for a little bit of time. You can, of course, choose to cut resources at any point, cut military spending, and save up for your ministry. That is a valid course of action, of course. But will NICOLAS do that? I don't know. That would be his expansion attempt if it comes to pass. Now, this is a very late first military structure. If I'm thinking of the way that, like, Newt played later on in this tournament versus Zeke, this would be, he'd be eaten alive, dude. There'd be no hope for him because the first Huracan would have already been here. In fact, if NICOLAS had kind of just waypointed these Mavericks out of his stockades, he probably could have ended Grass Eater's career already in the lower bracket. Remember, this is single elimination, or sorry, a double elimination, but it's best of 1, and they are in the lower bracket. So it really is just down to each individual game, meaning we say goodbye to one more player. NICOLAS's Mason arrives on the scene of the crime that is existing for Zerg. Expansion coming up for him, so we'll see if Grass Eater wants to continue his antics. He will go ahead and use the Izira cores to deal with this Mason. We're testing some interesting changes on pre-release, and sooner rather than later, that will become release. We've been waiting to actually push a release until we can test a bunch of stuff, but then we keep coming up with really epic changes, and we're like, oh, well, I got to test those too now. And not the least of which is, of course, the formal announcement of Replay Kraken's first viewing, so you will be able to automatically upload your ranked games now that that's hooked up. I highly recommend checking that out. Yeah, anyway, one of the changes that we were testing is the Izira core doing less damage, but costing less minerals, and just increasing the swarming nature of the Zerg in general. Now, these Izira cores are going to struggle quite a bit because of the presence of those Huracans at the tip of the spear, and the stim after clearing that second wounded Izira core. It's a little bit of a problematic situation here for Grass Eater. I'm not entirely sure he can hold against this wanton aggression. NICOLAS making sure, since he's... as far as I know, NICOLAS is a little younger than Grass Eater, but maybe they're actually the same age. Anyway, this is definitely the TikTok generation right here. NICOLAS is going to be trying his best to make it happen. Now, he's going to stim in, and remember he has the armor rend for the Hatchros. This will go down so fast, so unbelievably fast, and the Izira cores were very far out of position. Not expecting this move here from Grass Eater, from NICOLAS, I guess, by Grass Eater, but he will still be able to pretty effectively surround. 70 HP on that Hatcherosk. If he doesn't have a lot more reinforcing Izira cores, that's a dead hatch. And, the last game that we saw Grass Eater do, he GG'd after he lost the hatch, even though he didn't actually need to. Like, he wasn't in a dead situation. So that might be like a morality or a morale issue for him, where he's having a tough time staying in the game after that. But here, it's not really the same thing. He's actually forcing a Circuith morph just by virtue of existing here. Going after the eggs makes a lot of sense. One of those Izira cores should get bursted down indeed. Can't quite deal with these Huracans. Needs some Hydras to help himself out. Now he's going to try to sink his claws in acid, I suppose, into those Mavericks, but he's just getting run off at the pass. There's a ministry halfway completed behind this. Larva very wounded here. Larva production very slow, very low for Grass Eater. He will finally deal with the last of those Mavericks, and that is the bulk of the DPS for NICOLAS's army. Finally, we get some Hydralisks coming out as well. I really think this should have been a Larvosk, even though it's, like, dangerous to not have any static defense at this stage when you're being pushed in like this. That needed to be larva production, you know what I mean? We'll see if Grass Eater wants to keep it going or not. Holding on for dear life, not GGing quite so easily as last time. The Hydras will really help versus the Harakans, but he needs to split his Izira cores so he isn't just constantly dying to all of that splash damage from the Harakans and getting them all tagged up so that the Mavericks can just sink their Maverick shells into them. Yeah, that was okay. That was a little cursed, but we have the Hydras coming out now. We should be able to defend this Hatteras since there is no armor end. And you can see NICOLAS trying to stand and fight, getting a little bit of that kite backwards, but not great spacing on the units. He does need to defend this hatch. Getting very low. Maverick stimming. Does he have any more units coming, Grass Eater? No, I mean, he's got 3 more Hydras, but I don't know if that's quite enough. I just think he might be running out of steam here. Though you might be able to say the same thing about all of those wounded Mavericks. Just like that, down to 3, but there's more Hydras where that came from. Oh, there's going to be a hell of a lot more Hydras where that came from on pre-release, I tell you that much. Maybe a little bit of a faux chase. At this point, you have to wonder how much military production your opponent actually has. And they have expanded behind it. And, you know, Grass Eater might not know that, but maybe he can intuit it. Forcing his stim, killing a Maverick, leaving 2 to tell the tale. Back at home, the Hatteras has finished up for Grass Eater. He needs that extra larva production, I'm telling you, man. Going for the ski-back scab. He knows he needs some kind of backline that can really deal with this Bioforce. And obviously, NICOLAS is very far ahead in terms of worker production by this point. But honestly, this is a closable gap for the Zerg. You can see that Drolls are starting to come out, making more Drolleths. He does need to be very cognizant of the fact that the Terran army is going to continue scaling up, irrespective of the work done on a thing like the, you know, the fact that he's got that extra ministry. It doesn't mean anything because Terran is not like Zerg. Terran makes the Masons and the military units at the same time, just like Protoss. Whereas, obviously, you kind of have to choose one or the other sometimes when you're producing as Zerg. And you can see that Droll up progress going well, keeping it within 10 workers, finding time to make some Bactyls. If he can get those Bactylisks up and some frontliners or some static defense, we can say that he can hold here. The Izira Corps kind of scouting around the middle of the map. I kind of wish it had taken a more obvious frontal push. It's going all the way up to the 3rd base, I guess? I don't know. I feel like he really needed to know that this was coming. But the Bactyls should finish in time, making even more Drolleths, though. First Harakan sighted. Oh, my Grass Eater. He's trying to push forward with the Bactyls. I mean, I don't know. What NICOLAS doesn't know won't hurt him, I think. He's adding the Eidolons now. No frontline, no circuits at all. He's just stimming forward. He's stimming into them. He doesn't care. He says, to hell with your Bactylisks. It still will end up cleaning up. Obviously, he had all these extra Drolleths pulled from the mineral line. Oh, but, you know, he's only got a few Hydras here to deal with the Harakans, so that could be a massacre onto what we have here for the worker line. It looks like eventually it will be resolved, and Grass Eater's got to get back to mining. ASAP does so. Worker Powaz. Well, at least he's in good spirits, right? We do have an Anseal out, a couple stockades being added on. The Covenant is done, which means, as I mentioned, Eidolons are coming. Ministry for base number 3, that Izira Corps that was sent out as a scout, will reveal the presence of an Eidolon. So, are we going to see an Ovoleth queued up? You know, this is the kind of thing that you got to think about here. Yep, indeed, 1 Ovoleth coming. I wouldn't mind a second, but, you know, that is a lot of resources spent on, you know... Oh my god, he actually just straight up lost the Izira Corps. He could have pounced upon those 2 Eidolons. That's a good trade, actually. If you can trade 1 Izzy for 2 Eidolons, you're happy about that as the Zerg player. We need to see more Drolleths at some point as well. The 3rd base on the low ground with a double gas. Shopkeeper Dog thinks everybody gets baited after this base. You should just abandon it or take it later as your 4th or whatever. Maybe not a bad idea. Crisis Vector has been played a lot, so you'd expect people to have that kind of thing down. But sometimes you don't know. Sometimes you just don't know. Hey, we're fast approaching the point of time where it's not a TikTok video anymore. That's pretty shocking. I can't believe Grass Eater has brought us to the promised land of NICOLAS not immediately fending him off. The Wraith is scouting around. It will actually kind of stumble into this army and then get summarily executed by the Izira Corps. 3rd base will be lifted off over there for that Terran player, and it does mean that we're actually entering into 3-base gameplay. I like this, guys. I love that Grass Eater was able to hold on. I do think that there's room for NICOLAS to have ended this game already, but it's good to see a little bit of a longer match, right? We have the Izira Corps, we got the Bactyl units. Is this going to be enough? I mean, the answer is probably not, but let's find out. I mean, the Eidolon count is 15. It's pretty respectable. The biggest issue right now is we don't have anything that will actively decloak those units in the backline, so you have to rely on the Ovaleth to be kind of like around some of this cliff stuff over here off to the side, right? That way it won't get shot at by the Eidolons, and you can use it to detect. But then there's the Anseal for like counter vision over the air units. So it's not very easy, right? And he's only got the one Ovaleth as well. So prime target there. Bactol's trying to deal with the Anseal. I don't mind that whatsoever. Down it goes immediately. The Azeracors are trying to get past the Hurricanes, which were not busy attacking the Azeracors at all. Hold on, Grass Eater might be able to crush this attack. Nothing to decloak those Eidolons off to the top. The Ovaleth gets scrambled over for those purposes. We got reinforcements streaming on in. This is where the tide can turn. The Mavericks stem over and get straight into the face of those Bactols. That's not what you wanted to see if you were a Zerg enjoyer watching this video, because that means that we might end up seeing the cleanup on the Remax. However, NICOLAS has been routed in that middle of the map. We did end up getting a nice hype fight at the end. Or is it even the end? Because we have a Palladium started up here. Not many workers just yet saturating that third base. 30 worker advantage for our Terran. Not something you see every day in this matchup. A lot of Mavericks. Vestry being added on to at this point. Second Fulcrum, we're going to get Phalanxes out. I actually really like the idea of supporting your bio with Phalanx. Bio tank has been something I've always wanted to see Terrans do. At long last, secondary, tech node has arrived for Grass Eater. He's going to be going for the Zorkish Shroud. I suppose Zorius will be his MO. Every time he takes damage, it spawns a little chewy little guy, a Rillarokor, and the Broodling equivalent. And when that dies, it, slows attack speed and reduces armor, which isn't super effective versus, any of these units like Mavericks and Eidolons, but it helps with the Hurricanes. I feel like right about now, what we're going to need to see Grass Eater do is bide his time and wait, because the Remax is in. You see it's 27 Mavericks. You really can't just sniff at that army and then, walk up to it as he has, it feels like. Well, very close to killing that Anseal, but not quite at that point. He's got some more units coming in. He really should just kill this Huracan before it chases down his army, but that's okay. It's not the end of the world. Ahmed isn't that powerful, I guess. I thought there was going to be more follow-up there from NICOLAS, but he took some time to gather his forces. He's sending out his second Phalanx. Looks like he might be trying to pressure this low ground double gas base. Again, this is one of the reasons why you might think about taking this high ground base instead. Splash damage. That once upon a time did hull damage to Anseals, but that's been fixed a long time ago. The Skithercores kind of being heckled out here. Immediately shutting down the harvesting of Vespian at this base, but the Bactals are really risky, really scary here until the Phalanxes actually get deployed. 6 Lakes are on the way. That's what Grass Eater wants most of all. The Wounded Anseal is going to be struck down. We don't have anything decloaking those Eidolons, and nothing for detection here either. The Bactals being pulled away from where that Phalanx is deployed. He's going to have to concede this base. Yeah, there's no way to save it. And that's really dangerous here for Grass Eater, because that was a significant portion of his Vespian income. And he's down by almost over 40 workers, almost 50 workers now. So this is not good. Can he hold on with the Lakis? Because we have Anseals for detection. Skithercores have been kind of heckling them. Oh, there's actually not that much left over here on the ground. We have reinforcements coming in. It's mostly Mavericks at this point. I don't really think that we're going to be able to see much of a creep forward here, but maybe I'm wrong. The Anseal's providing. There's no anti-air here, really. Yeah, the Lakers are going to get chewed up here. Grass Eater needs to retreat from this position back to his choke point. Instead, he's trying to push forward with more Lakers, but he has no reinforcements. Oh, the deployment of the Phalanxes just kind of guts him. And yeah, he's going to call GG. He had a lot of money in the bank at the end there. Definitely feels like more hatches would have been necessary to hold off that push. One of the things that I think we really need to see, especially after some latest balance adjustments for Zerg, which aren't really meant to like buff or nerf them. It's probably going to be a net buff once they get used to it, but it's about making them more swarmy, really. It's like a thematic buff to them, really. One of the things that we need to see a little bit more from Zerg players is having more production, more larvae. That's what I think will help the most if you're an aspiring Zerg player, you're in that class 3 sort of bracket, even class 2s. I highly recommend just building more hatches. You just figure it out, man. It's going to be a great time. I do want to see a little bit more from NICOLAS too, because congrats to him. He moves on to fight another day. I believe his next opponent is Zevi. So you can look out for that particular matchup on the channel. And then after that, the winner of that matchup goes up against Art of Turtle. So stay tuned for that, and we'll see more coverage of that. And you can check us out on the TikTok channel that I mentioned a few times in this video. But obviously, this one's going on YouTube. So congrats, Nicholas and Grass Eater, you managed to make it to YouTube. GG.